Hey folks, people have been asking for a long time for a comparison or some help in recommending between the 1025R and the 2038R. We're going to do that now. I had to make some notes on this because I wanted to make sure I went into some detail and explained the differences as best I could. I was afraid I'd forget because there are a lot of differences and I just wanted to go into some detail. Before we get too much started, I want to tell you about another YouTube channel, a guy who's recently got a 2038R. It's called Elk Creek Acres. His name's Pat. He's also on greentractortalk.com. The reason I point this out is he's recently done an episode about his 2038R. He started with a 1023E, went to a 2025R, and now has gone to a 2038R. What I think you'll find interesting about Pat is that he was the staunchest defender that I knew of the 2025R, but he eventually just said, you know what, I'm going to try the larger tractor. I probably could use it. And now he loves this 2038R tractor that he has. Go watch his videos. They're not as maybe thoroughly edited as our videos, but he's got lots of real use of his tractor. He's got horses. He plants potatoes, he plants corn, he uses a disc, he uses a tiller, he uses a plow, I believe, too. I'm not sure what all the attachments he's got and how he uses them, but go check it out. I think if you want more details about the differences in these tractors, he's got a unique perspective because he's had each one in the line. Throughout this episode, you're going to hear a lot of positive things about the 2038R. Lest you be concerned that I no longer have love for the 1025R, you would be wrong. I still think this is an amazing machine. Our history of videos should show you that we know this thing can get a lot of work done. We think it's an incredible value. But there has to be some differences or else there would not be any reason for a more expensive price that you would have to pay for a 2038R. So your question is it worth the extra money? Not, is it a direct comparison? So yes, these machines are significantly different, a lot different, but that doesn't mean that I don't love this guy. Some areas that this guy wins in the competition between the two, the first one I just mentioned was cost. The next thing is, and probably the biggest thing, is it is incredibly maneuverable. I can get into areas in people's backyards that Christy can't believe I get into. Sometimes she's kind of scared because she's saying, oh, you're going to hit, you're going to hit, you're going to hit. Well, sometimes I do hit. That's the reason she gets so scared. But anyway, it's incredibly maneuverable. You've seen our turning radius test, perhaps. If you haven't seen it, it's in round number 2 or 3 or 4. I can't remember the details of the BX versus 1025R comparison. This thing has an incredibly tight turning radius. Very maneuverable. That's my favorite feature of this tractor, hands down, when comparing to any other compact or subcompact tractor. That's it. Okay, the next one we've already mentioned is cost. Not only is the tractor and the loader cheaper, the mower deck is a little bit cheaper, the backhoe is a lot cheaper. Other attachments that you need to buy, like a tiller, well, it's going to be cheaper because you typically buy a little smaller attachment for a 1025R than what you would for a larger compact tractor like a 2038R. So the cost has to be obviously figured in. And that's what you're trying to get over the hurdle of, right? If you're thinking about a larger tractor, can I get over that cost hurdle? Another area that's kind of implied cost we talk about a lot is the amount of storage area it takes. This tractor is physically smaller. Its loader takes up less space. The backhoe takes up a lot less space. Again, your other attachments are going to be larger and require more storage space as well. So consider that when you're trying to purchase. These are all advantages of the 1025R. Now I have one more specific one. The toolbox on the 1025R is very nice. There really is no toolbox on a 2038R. Pat from Elk Creek Acres, he didn't even call what I think they intend to be the toolbox. He didn't call that a toolbox. He just called it a storage area or something like that. It's not really big enough for basically a pair of gloves and a screwdriver. That's about it. And it also has the 12-volt outlet in that same box at the same time. So these are all advantages of the 1025R. Let's move on to the 2038R. 2038R. is essentially better in every other way than what I've mentioned for the 1025R. Biggest thing for me is lift capacity and lift height. At full height, the 1025R lifts just over 500 pounds. This one lifts over 900 pounds at full height. And that full height, I believe, is at least 6 inches more. We'll show that. I find both of those to be major, okay? It may not sound like a huge amount, but it really is a major change in ability. It's a lot easier for me to dump into my dump trailer with this machine. Now, I have the fold-down sides on my ultimate dump. I can still dump into it with a 1025R, but I have a lot more flexibility as far as getting that bucket up high enough or getting the grapple up high enough to put stuff in the dump trailer with this extra lift height. Really a major issue. Now, this one's hard to quantify. The engine and the overall feel of the tractor is quieter, it's smoother, it just feels much more, it's very hard to describe. Refined, Christy says. That's a good term. Well, again, it ought to for the cost. But to quote my brother Tom, when he got on this tractor, he said, wow, this is a real tractor. And there is that feeling that a 1025R is sort of an in-between tractor. Again, you've seen us use it. We know it can do a lot of work, but there's a little more vibration when you're on the 1025R. This one is just quieter, smoother. It starts smoother in cold weather. You don't have the difficult startup in cold weather that you have with the 1025R. Just overall in the engine, it's nicer. Of course, there's the horsepower difference, and we do notice the horsepower difference, just got a lot more brute strength. So let's talk about the operator station a little bit. The seat, let's start right there. It is a more comfortable seat. I can't fully explain why. Pat from Elk Creek Acres, he talked about it, and he tried to explain it too. He may do a better job than me, but it is more comfortable. The ride overall is smoother, maybe a little bit because of that seat, but it has a longer wheelbase, it's wider, and it has much larger tires. This makes the ride just totally different than a 1025R. Ergonomically, this machine is the best I've ever driven. I can put my arm right here on the armrest. My hand fits perfectly onto the joystick handle. I have the Artilian diverter with knob here, and it's perfect. The 3-point lever is, again, I don't move my arm much at all. SCVs, I don't use the SCVs near as often, so I don't really mind that they're out here a little bit. But when they are, they stick up high enough that I can easily find them. This layout, very, very nice. Now, another feature that's a big improvement over the 1 Series and 2025R is the command cut for the mower deck. This is all electronic, where you can set your mower deck height right here. You've got an up and down lever, which is essentially like the independent lift mechanism that's offered as a very expensive upgrade on the 1025R. If you want some information about the different mower deck lift options, check out our link below. I'll put a link to our website, tractortimewithtim.com. By the way, we have a bunch of information out there. We don't talk about it much in our videos. We should more. But we have an article describing all 3 of the different mower lift options for the 1025R, the part numbers for the upgrades. It's very useful to understand that before purchase or even after purchase if you want to upgrade between the 3 major mower lift options. The large 2Rs, the 2032R and 2038R, have what they call the command cut system, and it's electronic. It is totally different and much nicer than the 1 Series approach. There are more electronics in the dash, and you can tell in the overall control system of the large frame 2Rs. One example of that is the auto throttle. It's purely an electronic auto throttle in the large 2Rs, whereas the one I demonstrated on the 1025R and also on the 2025R is a mechanical auto throttle. It is hardwired to the throttle. You can't turn it on and off. This one you can turn it on and off, and it just feels very, very smooth. It allows you to accelerate with the lever a little bit before the tractor begins to throttle up, which makes it easy for me to leave the auto throttle on even when I want to do some really gentle work without the auto throttle getting in my way. I found that feature to be just an incredible feature, a big step up from the 1 Series. Additionally, there's the RIO, the reverse PTO off and on. such that when you go backwards, you won't run over your grandkids or somebody else's grandkids. With the 2R large frame, you can turn that off in the dash with controls. There are other YouTube videos showing how to do that. If you do that, you're doing it at your own risk. You don't want to run over your grandkids or somebody else's grandkids. I understand that, but I'm just explaining how some things are electronically controlled versus mechanically controlled in the 1 Series. At the rear of the tractor is where some of the major feature differences can be visualized. 3-point hitch, lift capacity, and lift height are dramatically improved over the 1 Series. This lift height is amazing. I've taken the quick hitch off just so that you can see in here a little better. But you can also check out some of our other videos. You can see that the lift height is dramatically improved over the 1025R. And that really does matter. Lift height is one of the weaknesses that you find in subcompact tractors. They just don't have enough range, right? The tires are small and they have to keep the load close to them because they don't have a lot of hydraulic capacity. So there's not a lot of room for having a big range of lift from low to high. This tractor solves that. It's got a real drawbar. Now, yeah, that's major. It's standard. The drawbar can be, you can see this pin here. Pull that out, you can slide the drawbar in and out. You can extend it however far you wish or you need to for your attachment. I find, believe it or not, that it allows me to pull that drawbar out far enough. I can use that little lawn sprayer, the old 15-gallon one that we used to use behind our little Sabre. It's actually easier to handle on the 2R than it is on the 1R because I can extend this drawbar out far enough. Now, you can purchase accessories, and I have one from heavyhitch.com, which puts a 2-inch receiver on the back of the 1R, which allows you to put an extended drawbar in that way. I recommend that for the 1025R. It works very, very well, but this one comes standard, right? So some of these features you begin to see are standard features on this bigger tractor where they're options or aftermarket options on the 1 Series. By the way, the 3E doesn't come with a drawbar. Any of the 3025, 32, or 38Es do not come with the drawbar. That's an additional option. So when you're looking at some of the pricing, remember that's what happens in these R Series tractors. A lot of this stuff comes standard. Rear SCVs, rear hydraulic outlets, are available on the 2032 and 2038R. I've got 2. That's what the options allow, is 2 rear remotes. When I say 2, you'll see that there are actually 4 outlets here. 2 green, 2 blue. I just had something plugged into the blue so they're not covered. But it takes 2 hoses to make 1 rear SCV, one for flow to go out, one for flow to come back, right? So from the cylinder. When you get 1 rear SCV, it has 2 openings. This one has both. That's in addition to the Power Beyond for the backhoe. On the 1 Series, if you get the Power Beyond, you can't get a rear SCV. If you don't get the Power Beyond, you can get rear SCVs. One other point here is the distance from the drawbar up to the PTO shaft. This is a nice broad distance. This is what allows me to run the TS10, that big 10-foot flex wing, on this machine. I actually did some calculating to see if I could hook the TS10 onto the 1025R. I may still try it someday. One of the challenges that I have is the PTO shaft is closer to where the drawbar is, especially with that 2-inch receiver option that I talked about. So I may not have enough space in there to allow the big CV joints of that TS10 PTO. This is getting, again, more like what my brother Tom would say, a real tractor. Now, I expected the ground clearance to be a lot better on the 2038R than on the 1025R. I haven't seen that to really be the case. This drawbar hangs pretty low, and even worse than that is the backhoe subframe up there in front of the drawbar hangs even lower. So really, I don't see the improved ground clearance that I had hoped to see. When I need the higher ground clearance, I need it right in the middle of the tractor for row crop operations, like hilling my potatoes. Right? I want to be able to go over the potatoes when they're pretty tall without tearing them up. I just did that this week, and I didn't do a video on it, sorry about that. But I used Johnny 2 for that, just to try to get as much ground clearance as I could. It might be an inch or 2 better than the 1025R, but it's still disappointing. So if you're wanting to do row crop operations, this may not be a large enough framed tractor for you. just something to consider. Let's talk a little bit about the independent brake pedals. If I push the left pedal, it brakes just the left rear wheel. If I push the right pedal, it brakes just the right rear wheel. I should probably do a video visualizing this a little better. Maybe we'll get to that at some point in the future. One of the best purposes for this is when you're in an area where your front wheels can't get traction, you can't steer very well at all. You can use this sort of like a zero-turn lawnmower, right? You can stop one of the rear wheels and that will help guide you. That's how you guide when your front end is not doing what you tell it to do. Another purpose is as long as everything is balanced appropriately, you can turn a little bit shorter because you kind of drag the front wheels around and it improves your turning radius slightly. That doesn't always work. We'll show that in that other episode. But this is a nice step up, and in certain situations, proves incredibly valuable. There are a lot of times on the 1025R I've wanted to have this feature because I was used to it on ag tractors. I don't know how much it's worth to me. There's a lot of times I can just figure out how to do it with the 1025R without that feature. Okay, I've tried to be pretty objective so far. Let me inject some opinion into this. In other words, take it or leave it on this opinion, right? Every person's going to have a different opinion, I understand. The first thing I want to mention along the opinion lines is I'm talking about a 1025R, a 2038R. Well, Deere has a lot of different tractors around this same size. For instance, they have the 2025R. They also have the 3E series, which I consider to be in between these two tractors. I know that's not necessarily a popular view, but when you look at both price point and capabilities, the 3E series falls very close to, or maybe in some cases slightly below, the large frame 2R. So from my perspective, for maybe the needs that I use most of the time, I would not consider those tractors. I am not interested in a 3E tractor, nor am I interested in a 2025R. I don't mean to offend anyone else who is, because they're fine tractors. There's nothing against them. I just know that when I'm beginning to purchase a tractor, I have to try to eliminate a few options so that I can begin to focus and really make my decision easier. If I don't do that, I end up having 10 different options and I'm just so confused, and I just can't begin to settle on my final choices. So maybe just a few minutes on, well, why wouldn't I choose a 2025R? To me, a 2025R is very similar to a 1025R. There's just a little bit of increase in capacity. It's mainly because they have cranked up the hydraulic pressure just a little bit on those machines. It uses exactly the same loader. They actually changed the geometry on the loader a little bit so that it has exactly the same lift height as the 1025R. It does have slightly higher 3-point hitch lift capacity, but we lose my number one feature, the maneuverability. It's a little bit longer. It has, with the larger tires and the extra length, it doesn't turn as tightly as the 1025R. To me, the advantages are not worth the trade-off. Again, may be great for you. I do not mean to complain or try to put down your choice of a 2025R. I'm sure there are needs for it. How about the 3E series? Well, I just like the additional features of the large frame 2R. And so for me, the ability to remove the loader, the ability to have a mid-mount mower deck, the e-throttle, those features to me are very nice features. To other people, they may not be relevant at all, and I understand that. But I see the two as very similar in capability. For me, the 2R is my choice there. So when I'm looking for a tractor, I'm going to be choosing between these. Obviously, not many people can afford to have both. We understand that. So I think it really comes down to maneuverability versus features and refinement power over here. Those are the choices that present themselves in this argument. You're going to be happy, probably, with either one. There's a chance if you buy the 1025R, you're going to want to upgrade. There's also a chance that you're not going to like the turning radius on this and you're going to say, I got way too big of a tractor. I suppose that's entirely possible. Either way, I hope you found this helpful. I'm trying to share as transparently as I can, pluses and minuses, just to help you make a decision. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim.
Which is your favorite, Mary? The little one or the big one?